Hello Hastings, I'm Tom Wright. Welcome to Inside the Dakota County Board of Commissioners room. I am with our Commissioner for District 1, Mr. Mike Slavik. Mike, thank you for having us here.
Great to be here, thank you.
And this guy, you're the chair as well of the board. How long have you been chair now?
So I'm the 2017 chair. So
Okay, so your window's almost up,
my window is almost up. One more meeting to go.
Well, I hope you enjoyed having that power while you had it.
It wasn't power, but you know what? We got a lot done in this year, so it's been very good.
It sounds like it. What brings us here today is this right here, a property tax statement you may have received in the mail if you're a property owner here in Dakota County. We'll talk about that and the levy set for proposed for 2018. Sounds like there's some good news to share on that. And we'll also talk about the 2018 budget that you guys had a budget and levy hearing just here in this room.
Yes.
So we'll talk about that and the highlights from the budget for next year and how much it is, what the expenses are for the county, where they're spending the money, and where the investments are going to be made. They plan on making some investments in the future here, and so excited to hear all about that. Mr. Slavik, let's start with property taxes and your levy set for 2018. Like I said, it sounds like there's some good news to share there. I'll let you make the big announcement, what the magic number is.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of good news to do that. A couple things that we are with the Dakota County budget is we are proposing a levy increase of 2.9%, but offsetting that with a 79% reduction in the regional rail levy. So the net impact on the taxpayer is a 1.9% tax increase, but when you factor in the valuation increase, which just to take a step back, you know,
Sure.
Valuations are always determined the year prior. So with that, the valuations had, on average, for the resident in Dakota County, a home was going to be valued at about 7% more. So the impact is somewhere between $0 and $8 for the average taxpayer for the county portion only, because of that 79% reduction in the regional rail.
Sounds like good news.
That's some good news, yeah.
So is that $8 a month or for the year?
$8 for the year.
Oh,
So,
wow, even better news.
Even better. So, you know, of course, with the county tax portion, that's only roughly on average about 18 to 20% of your overall tax bill is county. The rest is your city, your school, and other special taxes. So within your county portion, that's where we are, and we've been able to continue to maintain that over the last number of years. Been able to maintain one of the lowest levies of all the metro area, and it's been typically somewhere about 1% a year is what the average levy has been over the last 5 years that I've been on the board.
And watching your budget hearing, I understand that you guys are like the lowest per capita tax rate in the state.
In the state.
Out of all 87 counties?
Of all 87 counties. So that's actually been a high priority for the county board. We achieved that. This will be our third year. 2018 will be the third year that we've been able to achieve the lowest, and that gap is growing between number one and number two. We would actually have been able to be at that same level as the number two county. I think we looked at it, and it was going to be able to do like a 15% tax increase, and we would still remain the lowest. And but it was only 3 years ago that we were able to reduce the levy to be able to make that happen. But yes, out of all 87 counties, the Dakota County is the lowest, and one of the major factors of that is we did pay off all of our debt, so we are also a debt-free county. With a budget our size, to be able to be debt-free, that's been able to save a lot of dollars for the property tax levy.
How many other counties are able to say that they're debt-free? Do you know?
Counties of our size, we're pretty sure there's no other county in the entire country that's able to sit with a budget of our size. Some of the really small counties that have, you know, levies smaller than a city in Dakota County, some of them have been able to do that. I think we were told 2 or 3 counties in the whole state are able to say that they are debt-free, but nothing. None of those counties are over 100 million.
And something else to note, I think it was said at the hearing as well that the tax rate has been kept below inflation the last few years as well.
Yes, it has. And one of the things, inflation being around that 3%, we've been able to be lower than that inflationary rate. And that's even with giving cost of living inflationary increases for wages and benefits and that. But a lot of that's been driven from something we called our levy management fund. And because when we chose to pay off all that debt, we were paying about $5.5 million of levy dollars to just pay for the debt service. You know, that was our debt payments. And what we did is we actually, in that savings, we took the reserves to pay off that debt. And when we did that, we kind of kept that 5.5 and put that into a fund. and we've been able to buy down the levy as a result of that. And when you factor in that with some technology improvements and just a few other things in there, that's why we've been able to go as low as we can. And then the last thing that happened is this year, one of our major successes is the departure of the County Transit Improvement Board, CTIB. When we left CTIB, that allowed some new funding revenues for transportation.
And you guys leaving that, ultimately, it dissolved, didn't it? As a result, basically, the snowball kind of rolled on that one, didn't it?
So in June of 2016, the Dakota County Board of Commissioners gave notice to leave the 5-person CTIB board, which was Anoka, Washington, Dakota, Ramsey, and Hennepin County. It was a 1/4% sales tax that we had that went into a general pot. And in that pot went for all transit purposes, from the bus line in Apple Valley to light rail system throughout the cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul. And what we looked at that is when we looked at how many dollars Dakota County residents and businesses were putting into the fund, we were getting about a 30 to 40% return on investment on that. So for every dollar we put into this pot, we were at the point when we gave notice about 40 cents on the dollar was coming back to the county. As more and more costs were coming in, that was going to be closer to 30 cents within the next couple of years. So we gave notice, and it was a 2.5-year notice to get out of this board. We had to still pay into the pot. We had to pay off all of our debt, but then as the legislature changed back in November of 2016, there was a little bit more opportunity to say we all might be better off if we were able to have local control of our sales tax. And with that, the board ultimately did decide June of 2017 to leave, to go and dissolve itself. And I think we actually wanted to do it a little earlier, but there was a little bit of negotiating to see what happened. Dakota County ended up, part of the negotiation, they got a lump sum of $20 million to be used for roads and bridge projects in the county. We also were able to have local control beginning on October 1. So now anytime you spend money in Dakota County, that money is actually going to be, that sales tax is actually used 100% in Dakota County. The third thing that did happen with that is that the Metropolitan Council took over that bus line in Apple Valley, which we were using some of our CTIB dollars to pay for. And then lastly, we did go in, and the debt that we had to pay off from our prior commitments was paid off out of the reserve fund. So the net impact on that was, when you factor in where we were going to be, where we were going to, in essence, December 31st of 18, we were going to have paid $50 million into this pot. We ultimately had kind of the reverse of that, and we're going to be about $50 million ahead when you factor in having local control of sales tax, the lump sum, and no longer having to take over operations of the red line. So that really made a big impact in what we were able to do. But that decision, all of that, ultimately we were able to dissolve the board, and then we as a county board went and maintained that same 1/4%. Washington also did, so did Anoka, but Ramsey and Hennepin County went and doubled that. And what that, the legislature gives you an up to 0.5% that you can go for county projects, whether that be transit or roads. And we have done ours. We designated about $16.6 million a year, and you have to create a program of projects that you want to see in that. We'll have a bus line in Burnsville to Lakeville called the Orange Line that will be included. A lot of our more regional county road system will see some significant improvements. And then lastly, we're trying to partner with the state of Minnesota, with MnDOT, to potentially get into some projects that they have no financial resources to take care of. Like, for example, Highway 55 from Hastings to the refinery is not even in a plan to have an expansion to 4 lanes. However, the idea is out there, and some of the concept is if there was some county resources that helped pay for that, would maybe we see a 4-lane road. So,
well, there you go. I'm sure some commuters are very happy to hear that news.
Yeah, certainly.
Going back to the property tax statements mailed out, curious to hear how many property owners do you have come in and argue their evaluation and their taxes? Do you see a lot of that? Or?
So for anyone who watched on TV or on the internet, we actually had nobody come to our Truth and Taxation meeting to have to come and speak before the board. However, on average, we have about somewhere between 3 and 7 a year who will show up to that meeting, mostly saying, I have an issue with my valuation. We actually have staff that greet right in the very beginning when they walk in and say, do you need to speak to the board? Do you have sometimes it's we don't like this county project, and as an evening meeting, it gives an opportunity, even if it's not tax related, to just let the public say what they want to say. But as in the case of this year, all 3 of the individuals had issues with their valuation. So with that process, they were able to meet with staff, and I'm not sure if many of the viewers know, but actually your time to challenge a valuation is actually in the springtime. So you'll get that statement that will show the next year's valuation, and there's a process in there that you can go to the county and contest your valuation at that point. So for those watching, make sure that when you get that statement next March, that you'll go in, and if you have an issue with your valuation, that's the appropriate time by state law to go in and challenge that. And sometimes they're adjusted, sometimes they're not. Staff works really hard with the residents and the business owners to do it at that time. So a lot of coming in November, the process is more of here's what you need to do for the following year. But sometimes there are unique situations where you have my property zoned as a homestead or non-homestead, and it's actually homestead, or it's commercial, but there's no commercial there for the last year. And there's things that can be adjusted, but most of the times in terms of pure valuation, it has to be done in that timeline in the spring.
I see. And I'm sure there's a few curious. What is the process? How do you guys come up with that number of market value for the properties?
Sure. So Teresa Mitchell is our county assessor, and she's a Hastings native and has been with the county since high school. And so what they have is there's a team of appraisers that go through, and what you're really determining for valuation. In Minnesota, we pay in arrears for valuation. So the statement that you're going to get in March is that you'll pay for 2019 is actually what they're going to determine the valuation for 2018. So what they'll look at for what you're paying what you'll pay in 18 for taxes is what January 1st what the property looked like in 16. So they're going to determine what your valuation was, your square footage, and all of that. And there's a computer system that works based on square footage and the square footage on kind of where your valuation is based on your neighbors. But they'll go back and do recent sales. So right now, they'll go from recent sales in January 1st of 2017 to October 1st. And that's what they're going to determine as kind of the market to see what in your neighborhood may have sold to kind of justify some, well, a 4-bedroom, 3-bath in this neighborhood is around this price. And but a lot of it's based on recent sales. And then they'll look at, they'll use that information and then what the property is like on the 1st of January of the following year, and that's how they're able to help determine what the valuation is. So it's a complicated system, but it is measurable. You can actually explain how it is the way it is.
I see. But you don't have people going out to each and every property, of course.
I believe every 5 years you'll have someone come out, or at least stick the tag out, whether people will let them in or not. But a lot of it's more of a
kind of an ISSU sticker that they put on the house.
Yes, they go, we'd like to come in, and will you do that? Otherwise, if not, we're going to use the basis of the neighborhood. So,
let's move on to the budget.
Sure.
I understand for the 2018, you proposed a total of $370 million.
It's a $370 million budget.
Yeah, take us through that. What are the highlights of that $370 million?
Well, I think it's a couple things to note. With our budget, it's a $370 million budget, but the levy is, we're not taxing the taxpayers on their property tax is $370. So roughly about a third of that is actually the property tax levy. And then the rest of it comes from a couple different ways. There's state and federal monies because counties really do the social service arms for the state. So there are some federal programs and state programs that do cover about 2/3 of the overall social services that we provide at a county. And those aren't included in that levy, but are obviously in the budget. We do receive state aids with that, and then there's also charges for services. When you rent a camper cabin at Whitetail Woods, or you go and have your license renewed, there are fees that are associated with that the county does receive. So $370 million. Some of the things that we do, we do a multi-year budget planning with that, so we kind of know a little bit of where we're going to be next year and the following year. And so do about 3 years just to kind of give a little bit of a guide of what's going on with that. Good chunk of our budget, as with most government, is going to be salaries, and it's the people. So it's salary and benefits are roughly 70% of what we do is under that sense of the actual budget itself. So 370 includes all of our construction projects as well. If you just do the the people and the services, you're going to be in the mid 200 range. So with that,
and about how many are on staff for the county? Do you know?
We're creeping close to 1,900 employees. About 650 of them are in Hastings.
Okay.
And I know that mostly because the chamber had asked me to go and write a letter of support on behalf of trying to maintain Target in Hastings. And one of the things I asked staff was, well, how many employees do we have that actually have the local impact in here? So between our library, our sheriffs, and our county services in Hastings, not including judicial, we do have about roughly 650 employees in the city of Hastings.
Okay.
With that. You know, and a couple things on with the construction on there. We'll do about $50 to $60 million in transportation projects next year. Of that 370, we'll have 2 library renovations, including Pleasant Hill Library. We'll have a renovation and expansion. They'll be expanding the meeting room as well as the children's area. It'll be a total renovation of the library that will start in mid-2018 and finish in 2019. And that's over $3 million renovation of that project there. So there's a lot of building projects, there's transportation projects, but then the services are roughly about $260 million.
I see. And going back to that Highway 55 project,
Yes.
that idea you mentioned,
Yeah.
Is that near future? Far, how far down the road is that?
Probably, it's not in a current 5-year plan, so one of the things that we'll be doing in addition to the budget is we do a 5-year capital improvement plan, and it's not in there, but discussions are ongoing with MnDOT on, so things can be moving faster on that. So one of the years, we're actually having next year will be a lower budget in terms of projects that we're doing, and that's partially because we'll have this influx of new money, but the projects are a lot more expensive, so we are, some of our staff increases are actually in transportation to be able to use that sales tax, because that's a separate fund that will go in to create these projects that we had to list off. And so it's listed on the list of 18 projects to be considered on there, but it's not been definite. Some of the dollars that are going to be used for that is we have some trail improvement, we have some transit improvements, as well as and some planning. But probably the first state project that we'll see some of that sales tax look into is a managed lane, a min-pass lane on Highway 77, which is a state road from kind of the outlet mall to Bloomington is actually a state highway, has a lot of congestion, and the county went and is contributing some money to kind of start the study process to do a managed min-pass lane on that. The great thing about min-pass lanes are that people pay when it's congested, but the rest of the time of the driving time, the general public gets an extra added lane. So it actually relieves congestion in the non-congested times as well in that. And so there's a lot of bang for the buck on that one. And so the county's first we're willing to help support a state project, which is something that we've never done really to this level. If there's to do a purely state road that doesn't have impact on county's road system, is kind of unique, but we also realize that our residents and our businesses are using these roads, and a congested road doesn't do anybody good.
Going back to the revenue side of things, you mentioned only 1/3 comes from the levy.
Yeah.
About how much comes from the state?
Do
you know?
We're about it's kind of getting, depending on the year,
That's
about a third is kind of
okay.
Because
Because my question was going to be, how consistent is that from the state? And do you have to,
They've stayed pretty consistent. One of the things that
Okay.
has been consistent that we have is a thing called county program aid, very similar to local government aid, and that has actually been staying fairly consistent. We like to say that's one of the reasons why we're debt-free, actually, is because, as you'll recall, back in the late 2000s, local government aid and county program aid was cut. In fact, when I was on the city council, we had an unallotment that happened literally days before the end of the year, and it was a big impact on the city of Hastings when I was on the council. And the county board at that time made the decision. They said, you know what, we can't rely on the state. We're not going to do that. So they went and said, we're no longer using county program aid to help offset our county programs. And they used it only, so they kind of built up a fund and only used it for projects. And that was where there was one of the reasons which caused a lot of excess in the fund to be able to say, hey, we've got $50 million that we could go and write a check and pay off our debt, and we'll be saving $5.5 million a year as a result. So there is some stability now within county program aid, but a lot of it's based on what happens in a recession and that part in there, or with the federal government with a lot of those are entitlement programs that as sequestration happens and that can have an impact on what happens really on that social service side.
And how is your funding from the state determined? Is it sort of similar to school districts where it's they have a per pupil, or you per population per person here, resident?
It actually depends on the program. So there is a lot of that. One of the things that the legislature did in this most recent legislature went and actually, they redid the county program aid system. Because counties really, they're serving so many different services that they're not quite just like well, we'll use our LGA and we'll be able to improve our quality of life with a better streetscape or libraries, there's a level that counties do in that, and they actually, they redid the formula and made it a little more equitable and a little more stable, and they actually increased by 25 million into that pot on an annual basis. So that's a formula, and it was really designed a little bit on need and population growth, and there's another system we have for the county state aid highway road system, which we have the second most number of county state aid highways road miles in the entire state. Only St. Louis County has more than Dakota County, based mostly on how and when we grew. The state was not building new highways in Dakota County, so we have a arterial system that has that only rivals our largest county in terms of land mass, and that's St. Louis.
I see. I understand you mentioned in that hearing that there's some online budgeting tools that people can check out online? Or?
Yeah, so one of the things that a push that this board is focused on, and it was really a priority this year in 2017 for the board, is how are we being as transparent as possible? And it used to be, it's important to note that we start our budget really as commissioners. We started in June. The board, that's when our impact is, but staff really, they're going to start working on the 2019 budget in February. So they're already working on, so they really, we kind of joke that they get this, congratulations, we passed a budget in December, and they take January off, and then they're back to the budget already in February. We start in June to figure out what's going on, how do our reserves look. So a lot of those are like meetings that we have that the public isn't exactly knowing what's going on, or where are the dollars, and that. So we really worked, and we've seen a few other counties that have done a better job of some online tools. So we have a county budget tab on the website that allows you to kind of go and see where the charts are, where the money is, and kind of some of our planning, and kind of a little bit of a summary of what we've been doing. Something that we didn't have prior to this past year. So this is it's still a tool we're working on. It's right now more just information, and then call if you have questions. But some other governments actually have a little more interactive that allows you to kind of go in and provide your own feedback on things, and why are we spending money on this when we should have spent it on this? And I'd pay more for, so I'd pay more for this, or I'd pay less for that. And we're more just providing that as an informational topic. But we've tried as a board, between our PowerPoints that we have on our board meetings, to link them to so that maybe you can't attend the meeting, but at least you can go and see what the information was provided. So we're trying to step up and improve on that, and the budget tools are certainly one of those steps that we as a board made to move in the right direction.
Great. Well, we'll definitely show that on our screen here and plug that for you guys, and get a little more traffic there for you. Anything else on the 2018 budget?
I think we had something that we're seeing more and more. It's becoming a good savings for us. So you'll get your property tax statements that you have there, but we now actually have opportunities for you to go online, or to have them sent to you via email. And you'd be amazed how much we spend on postage, even at the rate we do when we send out all of these, and the staff time to stuff them, and that. So it's been really great that we have an online homesteading. So when you buy a new house and you homestead, there's an option on there to say, I'd like my statements to be sent electronically. And so that's been a great option that people have been able to have to do that. That number is growing, and we hope that even more people will use that email and online option for that. Also, we are the only county that goes in, as soon as you get those statements in your mailbox, we actually put them on. If you go from the website, you can actually click on your proposed 2018 property taxes. So we did that a couple of years ago, saying, we're not getting people to show up to our truth in taxation, but they still want to know what their taxes are. We have a lot of people who use our property information, and we wanted to do that. And so that's something I always want to make a plug to go and say it saves the taxpayer money, but it also offers more information.
Great. Well, there you go. And you know what? You might have just sold me on becoming one of your electronic receivers of the property tax statement here. Yeah. It is, I have to admit, it's nice to get something in the mail, but I'm all for saving some money, saving some trees as well.
Well, and with bulk mail, it's not as much, but actually the staff time to stuff all of them. When you factored in what they're doing, we bring in extra staff at that time of year just to go in and fill some of that. So, you know, when you're looking out for the tax dollars, which we, as you know, one thing we've tried to stress as a county board is we've really worked hard to watch those dollars and realize that they're everyone's dollars, and we need to do the best we can for that. So anytime we have options to become effective and efficient with government, that's what we choose to do.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Slavik, for your time.
Thank you.
And for anybody watching that has more questions, how can they contact you?
Yeah, so a number of ways to get a hold of me. I always tell people that, you know, you can always give me a call at home. So that's one thing that not every elected official wants you to call them at home. I think that it's one of the better ways just to be able to, you know, do it on the phone. So my home phone number is 437-4637. Also, you know, if you want to just leave a message at our office, all of the county information, if you go to dakotacounty.us, you'll be able to go on, click on Commissioners, has my home phone number, has the office phone number, has email. Any of the ways work for to get a hold of me. But I usually say, you know what, give me a call at home. If it's something you really want to have a conversation on, we'll grab a cup of coffee. We can meet here at the county, or we can just, if it's just easy, I'll just send you an email with the response. So
Great. Well, we'll have your phone number right up there, and if
Great.
you change your mind, we can put the wrong number up there.
No. I appreciate it when people call at home. So.
All right. Thanks again for your time.
Thank you.
And thank you folks at home for joining us. We'll see you next time.